I will now invite Maitri Goswamy ji to present a paper on comparative analysis of the metaphysical aspects of Kashmir Shaivism and Vallabh Vedant in the context of Shuddha Advaita Vedant. Before that, a brief introduction of Maitri ji. Maitri is a Vaishnavite by faith and a learner of Vedanta, Bharatiya culture and Sanskrit scriptures. She has pursued MA from Sampurnanand Vishwavidyalaya, Varanasi with Vedanta as the main subject. As the 17th descendant of Mahaprabhu Sri Vallabhacharya, she has been studying all the Sampradaya scriptures of Pushti Bhakti Margiya sect from her father Sri Sharad Goswamy and her revered Guru Goswami Sri Sham Manohar ji for the last 14 years. In accordance with her duties towards her Sampradaya, she currently preaches the scriptures written by Mahaprabhu Sri Vallabhacharya and Vedic philosophy. Maitri ji, welcome to this conference and please proceed. You have 20 plus 5 minutes. The stage is all yours.
Today I am discussing upon the metaphysical aspects of Kashmir Shaivism, which comes from the major school of Shaivism and Vaishnav tradition, under which I am taking Vallabh Vedant into the consideration, because both these philosophical schools have proposed the same philosophy titled as Shuddha Advaita Vedanta. Namarupa Karma Leela Satvik Asyapyanekata Swasya Dvedha Padakam Tat Brahmaikyam Dhimahi Param. On the ground of geographical differences and the worshipping traditions, both the Sampradayas, Pratabhigya Darshan and Pushtabhakti Sampradaya proposed by Vallabhacharya have been quite different from each other, but the philosophical has been the same for both these Sampradayas. Shuddhadvait school of philosophy has been proposed by Mahaprabhu Sri Vallabhacharya, while Somanand Utpaldev and Abhinav Gupta have in collaboration have titled their philosophical stand as Shivadvaitvad and Swatantravad. Not going on the name, but on the conclusion which I am able to understand, studying both them on the ground. Can you go to the next slide? So the context which I am discussing upon now is the Upanishadic Brahmavad, which is the cornerstone of the Indian philosophical tradition. So because both the schools have their origination from the Upanishads, therefore Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti, it is what the Vedic philosophy concludes upon, that whatever you name the Almighty Tattva as, but ultimately it is this one and the same. And therefore either it be Shiv as the ultimate Tattva in Kashmir Shaivism and Pratyabhigya Darshan, while Bhagavan Shri Krishna and Narayan on the Vaishnav tradition, both have been having the Tadatmyavad or Ekatmya with the universe and the individual beings or Jivatma. The quest for the Almighty Tattva, can you go to the next slide, starts in the Rigveda, which says that Kava Esha Vrikshaha, from which forest the universe has been carved or which tree has been used for creating this universe. And to answering that ultimate quest, Taittiriya Brahman says that Brahman himself is the forest, Brahman himself is the tree from which everything has been carved and everything has been created. And ultimately, this world which is standing in front of us is Brahman himself. So this is the ground for both the philosophical schools, where Shiv is the Tattva and Krishna is the Tattva. In spite of considering Advaita on the ground of Upanishad, we have all the type of schools in Indian philosophical systems, which are Dvaitavadi, Dvaitadvaitavadi, Vishishtadvaitavadi or Aupadik Dvaitavadi as well, from which as of now we are considering Shuddha Advaitavad. Next please. So for now, if we go through the historical aspect, we can say that in Shaiva philosophy and Vaishnava philosophy, in both these schools, we have Dvaitavad, Advaitavad and Dvaitadvaitavad. Like in Shaivite tradition, it says that Bhagavan Shiv asked Durvasa to propagate all these three type of schools on the basis of his unity with the universe. And therefore, Trambak, Avardak and Srinath propagated Advait, Dvait and Dvaitadvait. And same happens with the Vaishnavite tradition as well. Next, please. where Sri Vallabhacharya says that Sarvavada Navasaram Nanavada Navodi Tat Brahma. It means that we cannot finitely explain the Brahmavad because it has all the perspectives open, and therefore Dvaitavad was proposed by Madhvacharya and Ramanuj Bhaskaracharya, Nimbar Krishna Chaitanya, and ultimately Mahaprabhu Sri Vallabhacharya as well. All these have been common on the ground of Vaishnavite schools, but still have different type of philosophies. Same happened with the Shaivite philosophical schools as well. Next, please. So it explains the infinity of Brahma, which cannot be found in single philosophical school or explanation. Now, specifically about the Shuddhadvait Vedant, which is supposed to be discussed here, Shuddhadvait can be explained in these two statements, which have been concluded from the two type of definitions given by the Ved, which are Swarupa Lakshan of Brahman and Karya Lakshan of Brahman. Swarup Lakshan says that Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma and Anando Brahmeti Vijnanat, while the Karya Lakshan explains that Brahma is the creator and destroyer and the one who has the whole universe in him. And by merging both these definitions, we can come on the conclusion that there is some type of Advait which is having Dvait in it. And on the other side, there is some type of Dvait accepted in Shuddhadvait school, which incorporates the basic Advait of Brahma with the universe. And therefore, in the term of Vallabhacharya, we can say that it is Swabhavik Advait and Aichik Dvait, which can be concluded in the form of Shuddhadvait. Next, please. These are the 9 primary elements of Shuddhadvait philosophy, which I have concluded into. The first one is Brahmavad. I will not be going into comparing the quotations from both the philosophical schools, but would be explaining the concept. And in the paper, in brief, I have presented all the quotations through which the comparison can be clearly understood. So Brahmavad is the common ground for both the schools, where it says that Shiv is the ultimate tattva while Krishna is the ultimate tattva. And both of them creates the name, form and things of the universe from their Sat, Chit and Ananda. Viruddha Dharmashrayata Vad is the second concept, which explains that in spite of creating all the finite forms, the ultimate tattva remains infinite. And therefore, that ultimate tattva can carry both infinity and finiteness in its ultimate form. Abhinna Nimittopadan Karanatavad explains that Nimitta Karan and Upadan Karan both are single for the universe. The integral material and the efficient causes will go same for the universal objects. Where in Shaivite philosophy it says that Param Shiv himself creates the whole universe out of his tattva. And Abhinav Gupta says that the name of these revealed for the reunion session of the universe, nature, form, freedom, power of Lord Shiva is vibration. And this vibration is an excitement like a playfulness living in integral and eternal harmony within the unchanging and tranquil God, which is called the discussion form of the light from the God. So it means that in spite of creating the world, which is finite in its nature, still the eternal and integral harmony remains unchanged in the ultimate reality, which explains the Viruddha Dharmashrayata Vad. It means it encompasses all the Virodhi Dharma in the infinite form. Satkarantavad explains that in spite of creating the universe, the Karan remains Sat, and same goes with the Satkaryatavad, which explains that in spite of the creation coming out of the Almighty Tattva, the Karya remains Sat and it doesn't become a Mithya or Avidyak or anyways like that. So Satkaryatavad and Satkarantavad are explaining that the Bij or the Tattva from which the universe is being created doesn't change itself, and therefore it concludes into the Avikrit Parinamvad, which means that the Parinam or the world which is being created doesn't become Vikrit, but it remains Avikrit in its original form. And therefore the Prativigya philosophy says that this light form of God is inspired by his form, like fire and its combustion. The difference between the light and the sparks is completely unconvincible. And discussion is the perception of the light form of this one consciousness, which can be named as either Shiv or either Krishna in both the philosophies. And this discussion is its freedom, the freedom of Paramashiv, by which the soul becomes neutral and rests in the wholesome self alone. So Satkarantavad explains that the Karan remains Sat in spite of creating the universe, and this complete and this similar statement we can find from the Vallabh Vedant as well, where Vallabhacharya says that if Brahma is one and the only Sattva and he is the integral cause of the world, then the appearance of the world must suddenly be considered as the cause of Sattva. It means the reality or the Sat cause produces action, not unreal or asat cause. And there goes, and same happens with the Satkaritavad, where even the Ved says that the Brahman is perfect, and this arising from him, the world arising from him, even that is perfect, because the perfect is the origin of the perfect. Sat is the origin of the Sat. And in the time of doom, the perfect survives with the perfection of the perfect. So world and the Tattva both will be having their existence on the similar ground, on which Abhinav Gupta says that even doing so for self-indulgence, he does not deviate from his perfect freedom. So after creating the universe, the Tattva doesn't become imperfect, and therefore the pure nature of the Paramashiva in the slightest and always rests in the consumption of the perfect ego, the perfect Anand of Paramashiv. And therefore, along with his Shakti, Shakti Yosya Jagat Kritsnam Shakti Manstu Mahashiva, in which it says that Shakti is the power of Shaktiman, the integral power of Shaktiman. And there is Tadatmya Sambandh between Shakti and Shaktiman, and therefore the created universe doesn't become Asat or Mithya. And this explains Avirbhav Tirobhavvad, which means that all the universal objects doesn't have Utpatti and Nash, but they have Avirbhav and Tirobhav. It means they will disappear and they will appear as per the free will of the Almighty God. And therefore, whatever sort of destruction we are able to see in the universal objects is not real, because the Karya Tattva is happening, it is disappearing into the Karan Tattva form. And whenever the Almighty Tattva wants to make it appear again, the disappeared form comes into the appearance. And therefore, it is not Utpatti Nash, but it is Avirbhav and Tirobhav. This is what in Tantra Lok Abhinav Gupta has to say, that he is also able to bind himself in his imaginary form, and he is also able to remove that bondage and free his imaginary bound form. So from finite to infinite during the destruction, and from infinity, that same finite all the forms come into existence as per the free will of Sadashiv, and same is what Vallabhacharya explains. Karyakaran Tadatmyavad and Anshanshi Tadatmyavad are the two concepts which explain the relation of the Almighty Tattva with Jagat and with the Jeev. So as Veda says that these are the three names, forms and actions, and Brahman holds all the names, Brahman holds all these forms and all these actions, and it is one though three, and this one soul takes three forms. So this explains the Tadatmyavad. It means the Advait is not such an Advait which cannot incorporate Dvait in it. And same way, whenever the Dvait is being spoken, it doesn't mean that the Advait between both the forms is not being expected. So Prativigya philosophy also says that when Shiv, who is under the control of the living entity by the pastime of his pre-nature while being in the Jiva form, understands the transcendence he has understood as his transcendence by his free will of concealing his form, concealing means Tirobhav, then that true perception of transcendence becomes his bondage. So whenever the Tattva wants to create the finite forms, he accepts those bondages upon him, and whenever he wants to free himself from those bondages, he becomes infinite again in his real form. Avikrita Swarup Parinamvad explains that in spite of the Karya being created out of the Karan, the Parinam is not Vikrit, for which the example of milk and curd is given, that curd is the Vikrit Parinam of milk, while ornaments are the Avikrit Parinam of gold. So Avikrit Parinamvad has been explained by Sri Vallabhacharya and Abhinav Gupta both, where Sri Vallabhacharya says that the origin of the world produced by Brahma is supernatural. This is proof. However, the Sutrakaras are giving logic to give knowledge by being the result. So it explains that since growth is supernatural, it is proved that Brahman is the combined cause of the universe. Here, the premise is that if the action is the form of multiple buildings is sometimes distorted, how can it be called an undistorted result? To resolve this doubt, it is said that the change in the previous state of Brahman, it means the ultimate stage of Brahman, such as the disturbance in the yogurt produced from milk, should not be considered as the disturbance of form, smell, etc., should be accepted, not other disorders. So same example is given by Abhinav Gupta, where he says that when we are having the waves in the ocean, it doesn't mean that with the waves the ocean is divided. So that Dwight of the waves incorporates the Advait of the ocean, from which the waves are being created, in which they are resorting, and ultimately they will amalgamate into the oneness of the ocean again. So the Abhinav Gupta says that the light shining in the cosmic form, though completely integral with its real form, the basic great light, appears as different from each other in the forms of the proof and the theorem from which the tattva comes. And even if we assume a difference for behavior, which can be said as vyavaharika satta of Jagat, so he denies saying that if we assume a difference for behavior between water specific to Vichita Vajwal and water specific to stillness, there is no difference in terms of waterness between waves and the tattva of ocean, and therefore the waterness, as in fact similarly there is no difference between cosmic consciousness and transcendental consciousness which is inside us. The last vad is Leelarth Srishtivad, which explains that the play continuously happening between Dwight and Advaita is happening on the ground of Leela, the eternal playfulness, the mood of playfulness, the Anand of the Almighty Tattva. And Abhinav Gupta explains that explaining the very subtle nature of this Aunmukhya, the self-knowing Shiva has written that just as there is a very subtle vibration, spanda, before it when it is oriented towards the super wavy state of calm, still water, so it is very subtle towards the creation of the world, only desire is awakened. So that spanda of Shiv, Sadashiv, comes out from his Ichha Shakti, Swatantra Ichha Shakti, and therefore this Vad of Abhinav Gupta has been titled as Swatantra Vad, the Swatantra of Shiv, which can be synonymous term to the term Leela or playfulness. So the beginning of this subtle desire is called the orientation. To explain this Aunmukhya is called the first part of desire, this Panda. And by the way, there is no difference between the Aunmukhya and Ananda Shakti, since everything is ultimately the form of the same Shakti, and the Shakti which relies upon the Sadashiv. So towards the conclusion, what Abhinav Gupta and Vallabhacharya has to say on the same ground is that usefulness of Tadatmya Sambandh between the Almighty Lord and the created world stands upon the ground that devotion can connect both the Tattva. And for understanding the concept of devotion along with the Gyan Samuchita Bhakti, it is important that we understand the Tadatmya, because the whole and soul Advaita cannot make the being survive in the devotional service, and same happens in the Jnana Shakti as well. So this is how Vallabhacharya and Abhinav Gupta are on the same ground. I have cited all the quotations in the paper from which those can be cited, and this is what the subject I had to contribute. Thank you very much.
So I just wanted to say that in the lines that I was mentioning during my talk, Vallabhacharya is from the south, from Andhra region, and Abhinav Gupta is from the Kashmir region. And even Maitri ji is not mentioning that it is an influence. Probably she is just talking about a similarity, coincidental similarity. And another wonderful aspect of this is that the projected Shaiva Vaishnava sectarian division is also being dissolved by Maitri ji at a doctrinal level. At a doctrinal level, both Shaiva and Vaishnava traditions, and Vallabh tradition being the most influential tradition of North India today, with all its branches in the form of Ramanandi and other Sahaja Ananda tradition and all other branches of Vallabha tradition only. So, with that influence and the similarity at a doctrinal level with Kashmir Shaivism, actually that's a wonderful integrational view that Maitri ji was presenting. Thank you very much for that. Dimple ji, please.
Thank you so much, Nagaraj ji. I just want to add one thing, that to see young scholars like Maitri ji hold forth on such themes is very reassuring and heartening, and I'm sure that the audience that has watched her presentation would leave with something to reflect upon, and this paper, when published on Indica today, would be there for everyone to read. Maitri ji, there was a comment shared by an audience member. I will pass it on to you later. So thank you so much, and despite all the technological hiccups, we managed to do it in time. Thank you so much.